Look at all this absolutely gorgeous color and texture. Today, we're going to talk about plants that will brighten up a shady or part sun location. Hey fellow gardeners, I'm Dawn from Seasonal Designs. I garden in Wisconsin, Zone 5. Let's start with this beautiful hellebore. Look at the foliage on this plant. This one is called Ice and Roses. This particular hellebore does well in partial sun, and it is going to get about 2 feet tall and wide. Now this impressive new hybrid really has perked up the traditional droopy blooms of a hellebore. The blooms on this plant are going to be a little more out and even upright on this particular plant, so you're not needing to get underneath the plant to see the gorgeous blooms. This is hardy in zones 5 to 9, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the blooms on this one. Next up is this absolutely beautiful all gold Japanese forest grass. Now this plant loves partial sun, and it is hardy in zones 4 to 9. It's going to get about 18 inches tall and wide, and it is going to just provide this pop of absolutely beautiful color to brighten up any partial sun location. This is a wonderful sort of graceful ground cover that will just slowly expand and fill in. Isn't she gorgeous? Next up is this northern exposure red Heuchera, and look at the bright foliage on that. This actually does well in full sun to full shade. This plant is hardy in zones 4 to 9 and is going to get about 14 inches tall and 20 inches wide. Now this forms really sort of dense mounds. It's very clean looking, and it is going to just be a beautiful mound of bright red color. It also throws up these really pretty little spears of flowers on it that are kind of a greenish yellow. But this plant, because full sun to full shade, is very versatile. You can use it just about anywhere in the garden, as well as containers. This is Siren Song Dark Night Heuchera, and isn't that a gorgeous color? This is a Monrovia exclusive. This guy is going to do well in zones 4 to 9, is going to get about 18 inches tall, 15 inches wide, and does very well in a part sun location. It also gets these absolutely gorgeous blooms that are going to be reddish pink in late spring, and it actually attracts hummingbirds. This one you need to add to your garden. Next up is this Jack Frost Brunnera. Isn't that a beauty? This plant does well in part sun to full shade, and it is hardy in zones 3 to 8 and will get about 12 inches tall and 24 inches wide. It gets really pretty kind of green foliage with silver accents on it that really provide a very dramatic kind of eye-catching pop in a woodland garden setting. And then it gets these beautiful, tiny, delicate little blue flowers on the top of it. It's absolutely gorgeous. Next up is this red-leafed Mukdenia, and I'm not even sure if I'm saying that right. In fact, I never heard of this perennial before, but when I saw it, I knew I needed to add it to my shade garden. This plant is hardy in zones 4 to 9, and it's going to get about 1 foot tall and 2 feet wide, and it does well in full to partial sun. It is also a Monrovia exclusive. And I love this plant because when it emerges from the ground, it's going to be a very bright green color. And as it ages, the color gets deeper and darker. And then it has these beautiful streaks of red in it. It also gets a little dainty white flower early in spring. This is Autumn Brilliance Fern. And you're probably thinking, oh no, ferns are kind of boring in color. Not this beauty. Look at the foliage on this one. This plant is hardy in zones 4 to 9, going to get about 24 inches tall, 18 inches wide, and this does well in part sun to full shade. And this plant is actually heavy, so I'm going to set it down. This one starts out with this beautiful, dramatic kind of autumn color almost in early spring, and by the end of the season this plant will turn a deep dark green, but it is beautiful to brighten up any shady corner in your woodland garden. This beauty right here is called Gotemba Golden Japanese Spikenard, and it is a Monrovia exclusive. This beautiful plant is going to be a beautiful specimen in my wooden garden right next to my red bench. This prefers partial sun, and it is hardy zones 4 to 10. It is going to get about 5 to 8 feet tall and wide. Now this is going to emerge from the ground every spring, and in winter it is going to die back to the ground. It also gets a little white flower on it that's followed by these beautiful glossy sort of blue-black berry. I am going to pair this thing with another Monrovia plant that I showed you just a few minutes ago. Won't that just be a beautiful contrast? I have all of these plants together here because it makes it a little bit easier for me to talk about and point out the different color and texture of the foliage of these plants. I think it's very important when you're planning up a garden space, especially something in the shade, you want the foliage to be different in both color and texture. It just makes for a much more interesting space. If you're interested in purchasing any of these plants, I highly suggest you head over to monrovia.com. On their website there, click on where to buy in the upper right-hand corner. Scroll down just a little bit and you can see they're available at most Lowe's locations, but you can also find garden centers near you. You're just going to want to put in your zip code and then the radius you want to travel to a local retailer, and a whole list of garden centers in your area should come up for you to choose from. This is a quick peek at the area here last summer. A ton of bishop's weed in it. I popped in a few impatiens to try to get me through until I really planned to attack this garden space, but essentially this is just a hot mess in my eyes. Now make sure you hang on to all of your plant tags. They have a lot of good information on it, not just the name of the plant, but on the back of the card you're going to find light requirements, water requirements, bloom time, USDA hardiness zones, and the average size of the plant. I want you to really pay attention to the width of the plant when you're laying these out, because that is going to indicate some spacing. I also find it helpful to have a tape measure so that I can check the spacing between all of my plants as I'm laying them out. How beautiful did this turn out? I mean, so much better. It's quite the before and after. And I just planted this up. Imagine what this is going to look like as these plants kind of perk up and fill in. It's just going to be spectacular. But you can see I did plant in multiples, and I have everything planted together. That all gold Japanese forest grass. I mean, you see that across my yard or from down my drive. It really draws your eye. And eventually that's just going to be a wave of beautiful golden color. And then, of course, you can see my focal point right back there, that spikenard. That is going to get much bigger and much taller. I'm really looking forward to seeing just how big he gets this season. But I really wanted to just blend this beautiful garden into my existing woodland setting because I have a couple acres here of woods. And so what I've done is I've taken that beautiful Brilliance autumn fern and I've started to just blend him into the mayapple, which is the start there of that woodland area. Now, mayapple is just something that's very common in woodland areas across the United States. I have a lot of it here. It's going to be around for a little bit, and I love the texture between this little umbrella and that beautiful fern. And then eventually the mayapple will go away, probably in another month. It'll get brown. I'll cut it out or cut it down. And then the ferns this will just be a big, beautiful patch of ferns right here. I am so looking forward to watching this garden progress. That is going to be it for today's video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can watch how this garden progresses throughout the season. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.